Okay, let's continue with the program. The generation born in the 1980s and 90s have a particular fascination. They're the first so-called digital natives who grew up with computers and the internet as part of their lives. Here in the Middle East, the new generation is a subject of a major new research effort conducted jointly by our knowledge partners, Booz & Company and Google. To give us some of the highlights, please welcome Booz & Company's Global Media Practice Leader, Karim Sabbagh, and Google's Middle East Chief, Mohammed Murad.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here. And it's a great pleasure to share with you the findings from this first ever study covering the Arab digital generation. As briefly introduced, my name is Karim Sabbagh. I'm a senior partner with Booz & Company, but more importantly, I chair the Ideation Center, which is our think tank in the Middle East, and is pretty much engaged in these topics. And it's a great pleasure to share the floor this afternoon with my friend, Mohammed Murad, the regional manager for Google. A year or so ago, Google, along with the Ideation Center, set out to learn more about this generation. And we had to concede that this was a tall mandate, given that no previous work, at least similar to ours, was undertaken in the past. Now, in the broader sense, what we're talking about is the generation born between 1977 and 1997. So, we're much younger than that. And for you to appreciate how important it is, this is 40% of the MENA population. Now, if you round that total population to 400 million, we're talking about 160 million. So it's quite of a relevant topic to have to talk about this afternoon. And this generation, in essence, is very digitally active, multiple devices. They're in one form or the other on a social network. And not surprisingly, represent 4% of the digitally active global universe. So that is not a tiny piece that we can ignore. So we are relevant MENA-wise within that particular space. Now, what we discovered during our survey is that this generation is very different than our generation. And I say this in a very positive way. They are different because politically they are very engaged, if not very active, and we've seen the events over the past 2 to 3 years. They're very educated and quite independent. One of our very interesting findings is that they are decidedly committed to their religion, but in the same manner they are free-spirited. They are very engaged in their traditions, but question the relevance of their traditions on their future. And last but not least, why we are seeing that they are disengaging from the traditional social networks, so friends. Family remains a very relevant circle for them. So think about this generation as a much better version than us. Now, this is not to say that all is peaches and cream for this generation, because we have to appreciate that they grew up in very turbulent times, certainly more turbulent times than most of us in this room. And I say that because the political turmoil that they have witnessed was unprecedented over that particular period when they were growing up. Remember, this is a generation that either heard or witnessed the first Gulf War or the Gulf War in 1991. This is a generation that watched the 9/11 attacks. And this is the same generation that also watched the military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And this is the same generation that participated in one form or the other in the Arab Spring. So again, not an insignificant starting platform to talk about. Now, having said that, Mohammed and I are very optimistic about this. Because again, I would like to stress, we need to think about this generation as a better version of us. But enough with the background, let's look into their technology background.
Thank you, Karim. I'll take you through some of the findings that we got out of this study, talking about the technographics, the psychographics, and the way they interact with the internet. So first of all, which is really not surprising, we saw that this generation, the Arab digital generation, they cannot imagine their life without the internet. In fact, they're spending more than 80%, more than 80% of them go to the internet on every single day. Actually, 40% go to the internet to watch entertainment videos every single day. This is a very high number. So even comparing it to global standards, even comparing it to the US and the UK, this is quite high. And we're not surprised with this because we see this in YouTube. You know, some of the countries here in the region, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, we have the highest level of YouTube consumption as a percentage of internet users. That was not really a great surprise to us. We've also seen that this generation is so attached to the internet that they are willing to let go TV to be able to hang on to the internet. So in some, you know, they have, before moving to the slide, you know, one of the key points is that they're using the internet in all facets of their lives. They're actually using the internet to change their lives, and as we have seen, they're using the internet to exchange ideas with the world, and they're also using the internet to learn about the world. So this is not a trivial part of their life. Now, moving away from information and communication, and these are the points that I talked about, when we talk about commercial activity online, this was quite interesting and actually a bit shocking to us. So we're seeing that actually 4 out of 5 ADGers, let me use this word for the first time, 4 out of 5 ADGers do not actually engage in any transaction activity online. Let's step back a little bit. This is not 4 out of 5 people in MENA. These are 4 out of 5 people who go to the internet every single day, 80% of them. So these people are extremely engaged on the internet. Some of them go to their bank account and to check their levels and their accounts, but they don't, even those don't even engage in transactions. I will not take you through these numbers because they're in the paper. But really the idea is that the commercial web has not yet kicked off in the region. There's a great potential. We know that retail is significantly big in this region. We're a consumer region in many ways, but this has not moved to the internet. Moving from technographics to psychographics, what are these people thinking? What are the ADGers thinking? First of all, they really believe that they should be able to do what they want. Let's step back again. You know, this part of the world, we're used to being subservient, being getting used to being able to say that, we're entitled to this or entitled to that. This is different. This generation, they want to take control of their lives. They want to express their opinions openly and freely, and they also want to make their own decisions, even if others don't agree with it. I know that this sounds a bit trivial, maybe outside this region, but in this region, this is a significant percentage. And finally, when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of expression, this is very clearly one of the top priorities for them and one of the key benefits of technology. Now, what about life choices? In terms of life choices, they know exactly what they want. Not only that, they also want things their own way. So they want the what, and they also want the how. Okay, so if you see some of these statistics, almost half of them prefer to own things based on their preferences. And they also, half of them want to modify things to suit their preferences. And more specifically, when we talk about education and career choices, and this is more evident in the Levant and the North African region, people want to decide about how do they want to lead their lives. They want to decide on their education, they want to decide on their career, beyond traditionally where grades used to impact these choices. What they got in high school impacted what school they went to, and so on. This is the most interesting and probably, to me, definitely the most interesting. A bit surprising in the beginning, but then when you really think about it, it's not that surprising. The key insight from this slide is the Arab digital generation think that the internet is bringing them closer to their religion. And this is shocking because to many people, because especially those views, those conservative conservative views that say that freedom of expression and free access to information could deviate people from their beliefs. In fact, that's not true. In fact, most of the Arab digital generation believe that the internet is bringing them closer to their religion. Even the content on the internet is helping them understand better their religion and get closer to it. And if you look at the last one, it's actually, they believe that the majority of content is in line with their religious beliefs as well. Very interesting. Looking at it again, after the first shock, you see that that's not really surprising because I'm from this region. We are quite close to our religion, our culture. So why would we behave differently online?
Now, we also asked them about their views on leadership and how do they engage with leadership. The starting point is that there is a disconnect between this generation and the leadership. Leadership being either at the level of political leadership or business leadership. And effectively 40% are saying we don't relate to them, which is quite worrying because remember, this generation is going to be the mainstream societies and economies few years down the road. And 30% are saying, if we express our views, we will be concerned that we will be targeted. And another 30% are saying, we are concerned to say anything that will fly in the face of the collective wisdom of another group. And what is more worrying for me is that 30% are saying, look, we don't think it's worth saying anything because nothing has changed, so I will sit on the fence. Now, we know that 70% did not sit on the fence, and they actually did something. But these stats effectively are an invitation. Look at it as a glass half full. It is an invitation to build better bridges between leadership and this young generation. And I think digital technologies have infinite ways to bring them together.
Let me talk about education, because that's one of the cornerstones of any culture. In summary, because we're a bit short of time, there's a large percentage of the people of the Arab digital generation who are completely discontent with the state of education in the region. And technology plays a very big role. Actually, their life at home is much more connected and internet-related than their life at school. We at Google, we do a lot of activities. We have something called Google Student Ambassadors, where we have students in 70 universities around the region evangelizing the internet. We also have work with universities to give them access, free Wi-Fi access to all the students. All this are really baby steps. They're just not enough for us to change this perception and to at least give people the same experience they're having at home.
Now, in fact, these baby steps would apply to almost all sectors in the economy. When they were asked the question, what do you think about the level of digitization across multiple sectors like healthcare, education, energy, you could see the stats. In some cases, more than 50% are saying, look, they're not there, they cannot serve us properly. So again, a lot of implication on business leaders and political leaders. Let me conclude with the following. This is the first study, and if we learned anything is that this generation is a study in contrasts. A study in contrasts in terms of they're connecting increasingly on virtual network and dropping the ball in terms of real networks, but keeping the links with the family. They're researching product and services online, but they're buying it in brick and mortar world, so there's a link missing. They question all tradition. They stay faithful to their religion, but they see that there's going to be a refinement of tradition going forward. And last but not least, they have very strong opinion. They're posting them online, but it's a one-way conversation. And they're saying there's a way now to converse with the leadership. So thank you for listening. We all have a role to play. And Muhammad, thank you for this wonderful teaming over the past year.
Thank you, Karim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim and Muhammad.